Yeah, he's gonna be out for a couple, 8 weeks or something like that. So we got to work at it.
Is there a possibility that maybe there's somebody that's not on a team right now that could sort of rise up to that possibility?
All possibilities are available right now. I mean, wherever they come from, and we're looking everywhere to see if we can find the best guy that fits us. Um, so, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm not going to really lay out exactly what we're looking for here. So I don't want to show our hand, but once somebody's played, that's what's important. Guys, this head game experience is really huge to me. We have Cam, and Cam, hasn't played in the league much, so we're looking for an experienced player that could help us.
What's good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation. First and 10, your go-to for Raider news and analysis. Fresh off the Raiders wrapping up their preseason last night against the Arizona Cardinals. They lost. They went 0-1, 0-2-1 in the preseason. We're going to get into all of that. I am joined by my colleague Adam Hill. I'm Vinny Bonsignore. I cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review Journal and Vegas Nation. Adam also covers the Raiders and everything else in Las Vegas for the Review Journal and Vegas Nation. Just want to remind everybody that all Vegas Nation podcasts, including First and 10, are brought to you by the Las Vegas Review Journal and Station Casinos STN Sports, and we thank them for all of their support. We thank you for all of your support. The numbers are great. We appreciate it. Keep hitting the like button. Subscribe. I'm going to put out a special offer for the season for Vegas Nation subscription. I'll get to the details in just a little bit, but before we do all of that, Adam, the Raiders, it was an eventful night, to say the least, for the Raiders last night here in Arizona. Number one, I think the first team offense played pretty well in their short appearance, but you lose Aidan O'Connell. I know fans have been complaining about Aidan O'Connell, but life without Aidan O'Connell as that backup quarterback is probably not a world the Raiders wanted to entertain, and here they are for at least 6 weeks, maybe as long as 8, 9 weeks with the fractured wrist injury that he suffered last night. That's the last thing the Raiders wanted to do, but that's the reality of the situation. And also, just talking to Pete Carroll, looks like Jackson Powers Johnson is now the starting right guard for now, for the season opener at the very least. Pete made that official, although he didn't make it official that that's going to be for the full season. He said Alex Cappa is still going to continue to battle for that job. But let's start backwards to frontwards here and stick with the loss of Aidan O'Connell again. I know fans have been a little bit disappointed with this play. I know the Raiders have been disappointed with this play. I know Aidan O'Connell has been disappointed with the play. You can't turn the ball over 4 times in 3 games like he has, but Adam, he still is the most experienced quarterback that they have on this roster behind Geno Smith, and I don't think the Raiders want to go into the season with Cam Miller as their backup quarterback, the rookie from North Dakota State. That's just a little too risky. So they're going to be on the market, out on the market, and a lookout for a veteran quarterback. What are your thoughts on the injury and where the Raiders go from here?
Yeah, I think what the saying is, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, right? And I know nobody was excited about Aidan O'Connell. Nobody was thrilled. Nobody was thinking, well, if Geno Smith goes down, this is still a playoff contending type team the way that Aidan O'Connell was playing. But you need a reliable backup quarterback in the NFL. And Aidan O'Connell has been a guy that's been able to do that, has been able to step in and play serviceably, if you want if you want to look at it that way. And now you don't have that, and now Cam Miller as the potential number 2 quarterback going into the season, just it's not going to cut it. It's not going to work. I mean, I think you kind of saw against third stringers last night what life would be like potentially if Cam Miller had to be thrust into action in a game as he was against the Cardinals, and they really stopped moving the ball at that point. So the Raiders are going to explore all options. There's no question about it, whether it's guys that are on rosters right now that are going to get released, whether it's guys that are not on rosters that are still just sitting out there. They're going to be making a lot of phone calls and doing a lot of scouring of the wire because I don't think – and look, here's the other part. You're going to have to get somebody up to speed in less than 2 weeks to potentially be the backup if you're going to go into that game in New England with somebody that's not on the roster as your backup quarterback. But I think Pete Carroll was very clear that they're going to explore all options, and they absolutely have to explore all options at this point. You don't want to go into a regular season game with Geno Smith and then Cam Miller as the only backup option.
Yeah, that's just not. I don't see that happening. Not in any realm of possibility. And I did ask, Pete Carroll, kind of what the criteria was going to be, and he sort of, wasn't going to let the whole cat out of the bag. However, he did say, and I agree with him, this is what the Raiders have to look at is a veteran quarterback with playing experience. And I reached out to a couple of general managers in the NFL and people in the NFL, and the general consensus is, well, good luck finding that guy on the waiver wire. You're just generally not going to be able to find a guy that you can confidently go into a year with as your definitive backup quarterback, as your emergency guy if your starter goes down. There's probably not going to be many of those options on the waiver wire. Generally speaking, those guys are going to be undrafted free agents, guys with very minimal experience, if any experience, kind of your Cam Millers, to be quite frank, of the world. And so short of that, which is very unlikely that you're going to find your answer on the waiver wire, would be trading for a veteran quarterback, or is there somebody out there that fits that bill that's not on a football team right now? And the name that I threw out there, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is Ryan Tannehill, who's remains a free agent. He sat out last year after his contract ran out with the Tennessee Titans in 2023. There's been reports that have linked him to a few teams, the Minnesota Vikings, among them. If Ryan Tannehill at 37 years old still wants to play some football, what are your thoughts about the Raiders maybe making a call to him?
Fine. I wouldn't, I don't think I'd have a problem with that. I think you bring him in, he's got experience, he can probably learn pretty quickly, but he has been out of football for a while. It feels like you're going to want somebody that's ready to just hit the ground running just because, look, if it's a Ryan Tannehill, that's your backup for the year. I mean, that's not hey, he's filling the job until Aidan O'Connell comes back, right? I mean, Ryan Tannehill is now your backup quarterback for the season, I would think, would be the way you're going to play it. I would look, let me preface this by saying nobody's going to be thrilled with the options. Like you're
Right.
nobody's going to be blown away.
I've already seen that, stay away from Ryan Tannehill. I'm like, you're talking about your backup. What do you mean? Like,
Right.
beggars
So
cannot be choosers at this point.
So I'm prefacing this by saying, look, I'm not expecting anybody to be like, wow, that's great. I would watch Buffalo for sure. They have a pretty intense competition for their backup quarterback right now between guys that have played recently. Mitch Trubisky and Mike White are battling out for the second job there. I think one of them is getting cut. Is that an option? I would say yes. I mean, those are guys that have been in camp, that have been playing. We know they have experience playing in the NFL. Like, I wouldn't hate that as an option. And again, like, this is either you're going to find a guy like Ryan Tannehill that potentially could be your backup quarterback for the season, or you're going to find one of these types of guys who, are going to be available that we need a backup quarterback for the next 6 to 8 weeks, right? That's what we need. And so those are going to be the guys you look at. And if it's one of those guys, like, again, and I think you can look, I'm literally just throwing off the top of my head of thinking of backup quarterback competitions where one might get cut. That would be somewhere I would look at least and say, hey, which one's getting cut? Who's going to be available? Like, that's something to think about.
Let me throw some other names out at you. Would you make a call on Jameis Winston? What about Tommy DeVito? He's probably going to get aced out. He's got some playing experience. Looked actually pretty good in his last outing. I mean, somebody that started in the NFL, got a little bit of backyard, football, and maybe a guy that just bridges that gap back to Aidan O'Connell.
Yeah, I'm much more. If you're asking me between those two, I'm much more interested in Jameis. I don't know that Jameis is. He might get cut. So yeah, I mean that's potential.
Oh, I'm talking about a trade.
Okay. I mean, yeah, and would how much would you have to give up to get him again? Especially if it's temporary. Again, Jameis is a guy that would be your backup permanently for the season, so that might be worth exploring. Yeah, I mean, I would again if I'm looking at just strictly a backup. I don't think this team's in a position where if Geno Smith goes down, that I think we talked about this last week. If Geno Smith goes down, your season is over. Like, I mean, I think that's going to be the case no matter who you're bringing in. So I don't think you're going to find somebody that's going to save a season. So, I mean, I wouldn't give up necessarily a whole lot to be acquiring a backup quarterback. In that case, I'd rather find a guy that's waived or find a guy like, on the street like Ryan Tannehill potentially. But I don't know how much I'm giving up for a guy that you're kind of thinking if Geno goes down, your season's probably over anyway. So
we always think of the worst case scenario. Obviously, if Geno goes down, the season's over. Like you said, I don't care who the backup quarterback is going to be, unless you catch lightning in a bottle. But generally speaking, injuries to quarterbacks are temporary things, right?
Sure.
So let's forget for 1 second about the catastrophic season-ending injury, and in that case, the season's basically over for the Raiders, and maybe you adjust your thinking at that point. But if it's a 2 game stretch or a 4 game stretch, and you're a team that's you got to, I would imagine that the way John Spytek and Pete Carroll are thinking about this before a game has even started is the most optimistically as possible. Who's out there that we could trust in a 2 game situation or to come off the bench to save a day type of a thing? We'll worry about the season ending type of thing, if that ever if you ever cross that bridge. But in terms of yeah, and I've got a two-part question, but in terms of that short-term guy, I think a Jameis Winston fits that bill. I think a Ryan Tannehill, could fit that bill. You mentioned Mike White and Mitchell Trubisky, perfect guys in that situation as well. Let's look at it from that perspective before we start looking at that. What would you be willing to give up for a guy that you believe can be that 4 game, 2 game, 1 game guy for you?
Well, look, I'm going to be biased. I've always wanted Jameis Winston to be here because I want to cover him. I think that would be fascinating. So give up 3 firsts for him. That's great. I'm obviously kidding. No, I don't think I'd give up much more than like a 6th. Like again, I mean, look, if you're just out there exploring, and by the way, it's also possible Jameis gets cut. Like that is possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, it looks like they're pretty confident. With their situation, they're excited about Jackson Dart, and obviously Russell Wilson is a starter. Like, where does Jameis fit in at that point? Do they think Jackson Dart is ready to be the number 2? Like, we'll see how that works out. But I'm certainly not giving up a ton for a backup quarterback, especially in the situation where the Raiders are, where I think that they could have explored improving on the backup quarterback situation anyway. Like, I think that's something that they might have been and probably were thinking about exploring based on the way Aidan O'Connell was playing. But if you're going to start thinking about giving up a lot to get a backup quarterback, like Aidan O'Connell can come back at some point if that's the worst case scenario. Like, that's fine. I don't want to be sacrificing a whole lot of the future to say we need to bring in this backup quarterback here in this situation. I think it's a position you need to improve on. I think you absolutely need to get better. You need to do something. But also, like, let's see what happens with the cuts first, right? I mean, it's 48 hours away, so I wouldn't make a panic move either because you don't know who's going to be available in 2 days.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this. You think Aidan O'Connell has played his last game with the Raiders?
Potentially. Like, look, if they make a move to get a backup, say they got Tannehill, right? Yeah. I think you're waiving Aidan O'Connell.
Yeah, with the injury settlement type thing, but yeah, because look at let's I mean it's tough to talk about this right now because the guy just broke his wrist, but
Right.
there is a business side to this as well and a football side to this as well that unfortunately sometimes rises above the human side of all of this. He wasn't playing very good football,
No.
and you know that fourth turnover last night, and when you think about his last 2 turnovers, the interception that he threw in the red zone when he forced a pass against the 49ers took points off the board for the Raiders, or potential points off the
Yep.
board for the Raiders in the red zone. Then conversely, last night he fumbles the ball in on his side of the field, leading to points, for the Arizona Cardinals. And when you look at that play last night, Adam, it was just a real continuation of the bad decision making because, I'm not blaming him for the pass rush, being in his lap, almost at the snap of the ball. That's an offensive line issue right there. But why are you trying to throw the ball when 2 guys are converging on you and 1 guy's basically on your back? It's just that it's first down. You take the sack, you live to see another day. You don't try to throw the ball, and I do think that the Raiders are a little bit disappointed with some of that decision making.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, like you said, that they would been looking for an improvement at backup quarterback as is.
Well, I think they would have been. I think it's fair to say they would have been exploring options. Now it has become now critical instead of just a luxury. I think before it was a luxury, like, hey, if somebody's available, we can find somebody. We'd like to improve the backup quarterback spot. Now it's, okay, we need a backup quarterback right now. And, to the Cam Miller folks out there, like, again, I think you saw it last night. You saw the end of last week. Not ready. Pete Carroll's asked today, what will it take for Cam Miller to be ready to be the backup quarterback? And he said a couple of years. Like, that's what he said. So I don't think they think he's ready to be the backup quarterback. Like, again, it was something they were going to explore. Now they absolutely have to. And they're going to. I think there's no question about that. But it's also like these next 48 hours are going to be so hectic and kind of chaotic anyway. Now you throw in, it's not just about making cuts for your team. It's about now trying to figure out what you're going to do at a very important position on the team. So you're going to have to do all the work that you were going to have to do anyway, plus now make it a very high priority to explore the quarterback market, and they will. I mean, I think that's what they're doing right now. I'm sure they were on the plane last night trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I'll go further. John Spytek was on the sideline last night. I know he was there very intently watching the game. I would imagine he was probably sending texts and making calls during the game last night. How are we gonna to address this? Because
it's for sure. Yeah, maybe one of their owners can unretire for a second and come down and play the backup.
It'd be a long process.
I'm kidding. By the way, that wasn't the only breaking news that came out of last night. We're going to get into another news item that Pete Carroll dropped on us actually today. But before we do, I just want to let everybody know that, look, you guys asked for it, and we deliver with a special offer for Raiders fans and Raiders coverage. Get Vegas Nation Raiders content for just 25 cents for the next 3 months. That's right. Vegas Nation coverage, a subscription to Raiders Nation for 25 cents total for the next 3 months. That's 25 cents for an entire 3 months if you sign up now at mylvrj.com/nation. I'm going to run that by you again. mylvrj.com/nation. That 25 cents for the next 3 months, that's an unbelievable 97% discount for Raiders coverage at Vegas Nation, and you don't need to go anywhere else. Vegas Nation has you covered from A to Z when it comes to Raider Nation, or when it comes to Raider coverage. It is your home for fast takes and smart coverage. So just go to mylvrj.com/nation for an incredible offer for a subscription to Vegas Nation for the next 3 months for 25 cents, I should say. Sorry about that. 25 cents for the entire 3 months. It's a pretty good deal, Adam, right?
Yes, and if you're thinking, 75 cents, that's a lot. No. 25 cents total for 3 months. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. But once you're in, you'll stay in, because Vegas Nation is your one stop for Raider news and coverage. Fast takes, smart coverage. Vegas Nation, that's what we bring to the table. All right, so in addition to the Raiders now needing to find a backup quarterback with some experience, staying on that side of the football, it looks like they've settled in. Not a big surprise here, Adam, on Jackson Powers-Johnson as their starting right guard for the season opener. Pete Carroll made that official today when he spoke to us just a few minutes ago. He didn't exactly, giving a ringing endorsement like Jackson Powers-Johnson definitively won this job, and we have no other, reason to look anywhere else at right guard. Alex Cappa, go take a seat on the bench. This is our guy. He stopped well short of that, basically saying that, look, with Alex Cappa being hurt, missed 2 games, 2 preseason games, a bunch of practices, valuable practice time in that competition with JPJ. And as a result of that, JPJ is just a little bit further ahead than Alex Cappa. And so he's going to get the nod for the starting job against New England Patriots when the Raiders open the season in a couple of weeks. But that competition will continue to rage on, and Cappa will be given an opportunity to earn more playing time. And this is really just settling for the regular season opener. What do you make of the decision, which isn't that big of a surprise? And B, the kind of, I wouldn't say lukewarm, but just like, yeah, for the season opener, we'll see after that. They don't feel like they got to settle anything forever right now.
Yeah, I think there's multiple parts to it. Of course, it's not surprising. Alex Cappa really didn't have time to try to compete for this job. He was injured the last couple of weeks as the competition was actually supposed to be ongoing. Jackson Powers-Johnson was the starter every day because there was no Alex Cappa to compete with, and that Alex Cappa gets 2 practices and a couple of reps in the preseason game then to try to state his case. So I think it's part of it. Like they don't want. It's been clear from the beginning they don't want to anoint Jackson Powers-Johnson in any way. Everybody kind of anointed him the starting center. Didn't happen. Then it was kind of just anointed the starting guard. That it hasn't happened yet. I think they've been very clear that they don't just want to say you're the guy. They want him to continue working and fighting for everything that he gets. So that's pretty clear. But then the other part of it is like you don't want to. You have a veteran like Alex Cappa. You don't want to just be like, well, he lost the job because he didn't really have a chance to compete. So I think this enables Pete Carroll's whole thing: compete. Everything's competition all the time. This enables the competition to kind of keep going and give Alex Cappa into the season more practices, more reps to try to actually state his case. Even if Jackson Powers-Johnson is the guy going forward, and as long as he plays well, like there's no reason to change that. It does enable you to tell Alex Cappa, you didn't lose a job. You didn't really have a chance to compete for it. That's still ongoing.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, thoughts from the game last night. I think my general takeaway from the preseason, especially with the starters getting some action last night, and then backing it up to last week against San Francisco 49ers. I think the Raiders' starting offense has a chance to be explosive. I think they're going to score points this year. They scored the last three. They had 4 drives as a first-team offense. They scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal. The only time they didn't score was the opener against the Seattle Seahawks, but they were pretty on point. Their last their only other 3 drives of the preseason. So feel good about that. I thought the defense got better as the preseason went on. They had a 3 and out last night. I thought the defensive line really came to life last night. I think the defense is headed in the right direction. But I have to say this. I think depth is going to be an issue for this football team, and I think that they're going to be pretty active, I would imagine, on the waiver wire, bringing in some help, maybe at cornerback and some other positions. And I'm always a little, when we talk about depth and how it might have looked, when the reserves got in, always remember this, that it's not typical that all those guys are going to be playing at the same time like they were, during the preseason. When you just throw a bunch of, first year guys, second year guys onto the field together in, 11 on one side and 11 on the other side, typically, 1 or 2 guys are going to play, along with the other starters. So their inexperience and maybe their, not being as good gets mitigated a little bit because it's not en masse like it is during the preseason. Having said that, though, I do think that this team is top heavy in a lot of ways, and they're going to have to really keep their fingers crossed that the injuries are at a minimum, because if they have to start digging too deep into the roster, they're going to be in some trouble.
Yeah, I think that's the case with most teams, but I think particularly with the Raiders, I would expect the roster to look very different Wednesday than it does Tuesday. Because I think you'll see the initial cut down day, and then you'll see the initial 53, and then I do think there's going to be a lot of exploring on the waiver wire for the Raiders and trying to find some of the best players to kind of pull in and take the place of some of those guys that kind of do make that initial 53-man roster. I think there's depth needed, certainly on the defensive side. They got a defensive line. I think they have a ton of bodies and a ton of capable bodies, but I think you'd still look and try to explore in that area. So Booker last night kind of promoted into a starting type role. So, I think that they're pretty pleased with his progress so far. So that's a nice addition up there. Linebacker, like after the starters, they need help. Like there's no question they need help after the starters.
Yeah, Eichenberg has looked better and better. But beyond that, yes, I completely agree.
I mean, look, it's a problem for a lot of guys, but in pass coverage, it's kind of a mess too. And
yeah.
I think they need guys behind there, and we kind of knew that going in, right? I mean, they bring in this veteran group, obviously that haven't played together before, but this veteran group that's played at a very high level as the starters, and then behind them you have guys that just haven't played at all. So it's that strange mix in linebacker that I think that they could address. Certainly defensive backs, they can use some help. I think there's no question about that. So I think there's areas they're going to be exploring. What do I take away in terms of the starters? Not much. I know Pete Carroll was happy. We saw some things that they wanted to see. They made fetch happen, as we talked about. It was the Dante Thornton long ball that they've tried to go with that we talked about last week. So that was good. That was a good sign. But again, like a lot of guys they were going up against are not going to be in this league on Tuesday. They had, Max Crosby gets a sack, or it wasn't a sack, it was I think a run stop in the backfield when they tried to put a third string wide receiver in motion and block him solo. Like what is that?
Yeah.
So what do you take away from that? Nothing. Like I mean, it's great that Max Crosby did it. He does it against starters and he does it against great guys, but I don't think you're going to walk away from that and be like, wow, Max Crosby, what a play. Like, no, like that was a horrific offensive play that, the starting unit for the Raiders was supposed to take advantage of, and they did.
Right.
So I think you look and say they did what they're supposed to do, that's great. But I think what you're really looking for in the preseason is a lot of depth, and I think that's where some issues showed up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought Tyree, there was a missed tackle. He did everything right, but wrapped the guy up. The guy ended up squirting free and running for 38 yards. But other than that, I thought Tyree played really well. Adam Butler got the batted ball down. I thought some of their interior, defensive linemen played reasonably well. Laulu played pretty good. Leke Fatu got on the field. I thought his presence was felt. But yeah, the cornerbacks continue to be an issue. And Pete talking about Caillou Blue Kelly having an old injury, a hamstring injury. That sounds a little daunting. I don't think it's serious right now, but old injury, that means that something that you might have to monitor, for a little while. So we'll see about all that. It's going to be.
I can tell you for sure. I can tell you for sure that, and I mean, obviously everybody saw it because it was so noticeable on the games that ended up in a touchdown, but Pete Carroll did not like that rep from Darian Porter on the fourth down touchdown play, and it was bad. I mean, that's a rookie play. Again, we talk about Darian Porter, all the skills in the world, and great dude. I think he's going to eventually be a good player. But he doesn't have much experience playing corner, and that showed. I mean, by the way, same receiver that they tried to block Max Crosby with, puts a move on him and just not great technique, and he gives up the touchdown there. Pete Carroll wasn't happy. He brought that up without anybody asking about it. Didn't like that rep. So
it was bad.
That's those are things to look for, and that's lessons you learn in the preseason as a rookie for sure. But there was a lot I think to teach off of. There's a lot to be concerned about. But that was a lot of guys that again aren't even going to make the team. So they kick it off for real in 2 weeks. That's what we're excited about. And for right now, we're excited about what happens in the next 48 hours of how this roster changes and how it's crafted.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to be there every step of the way. The Raiders have kind of a tentative schedule going on for this week. We'll keep you guys posted on when we're going to be doing our podcast, when they're actually going to be practicing back out on the field. So we'll tweet all that out and social media, all that out. Keep an eye out for that. Until the next time, we want to say thanks again for all the support. Don't forget mylvrj.com/nation to get a subscription to Vegas Nation for 25 cents for the next 3 months. Take advantage of that, whether it's for yourself or somebody else, a family member, a friend. Give that a look for sure. Thank you for all your support. I want to say thanks to Heidi Fang. I want to say thanks to Dom, our behind the scenes people. I want to say thanks to the Las Vegas Review Journal and also Station Casinos STN Sports for all their great support. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll be back at some point next week.